It's almost becoming a trademark, isn't it? Forgetting the microphone. Good evening, everybody. How are you doing? Hope everyone's having a good Friday. Getting ready for the weekend. Although here, it's more a case of trying to keep warm because it's distinctly getting chilly. Welcome to Hellish Quart. I can't remember when I first became aware of this game. It was, I think, on a YouTube channel about historical European martial arts, HEMA, which you may very well have seen. You may have seen the channel, you may know about HEMA. And my memory says they were quite complimentary about it, because it is apparently quite a realistic fighting game. Now, I've enjoyed weapons fighters for, well, many years. I haven't played them in a while. But I always did enjoy a weapons fighter. I mean, Soul Calibur, that kind of thing, Bushido Blade. And those are the two that immediately come to mind. But this one is supposedly cut above the average arcade fighter. It's not an arcade fighter, apparently. It's a more of a simulation. But I'm not really in a position to judge to what extent it is a simulation. This is obviously on Steam, and if anybody out there knows me, it's on about a 51% discount at the moment, which is why I've got it. And the soundtrack, which together cost less than the normal game. This is in pre-release. It first came out in 2021 in early access, and it is still in development, still in active development, I should say. I was just having a look on Steam. They've had a fairly consistent series of updates. Oh, certainly in the last month. I haven't gone through the entire history, so it's still being worked on. Although, as we've learned, that a game is in early access really doesn't mean anything. I think Sky Children of the Light on PC is still in early access, and I've been playing that for... Good grief, has it been that long? Over 18 months. As per usual for my first impressions, beyond making sure the thing works, I haven't really done anything, and I can show you what I have done. I will undoubtedly be making comments on system's performance. I've got G overlay over there, which I may drag over if anybody's desperately curious. So let's have a wee look. So, here are the graphic settings I'm using. It's set to full screen, the resolution's high, the graphics quality is at the top end. I do not have basically everything's turned on. I honestly don't know what difference is between these various options are. I've just got FSR anti-aliasing. No VSync. Force it to 60 frames a second. So that's the settings I'm using. Those are pretty much the only settings you've got, which seems to be fine. The images they're showing, I'm pretty certain, are from various fighting manuals, some of which I have certainly seen the images of. Again, if you spend any time looking at HEMA on various YouTube channels, you'll probably have seen some of these images. It's set in the 17th century. Now, it's a fairly long period for a game to be set, because throughout the 1600s, swords change quite a bit. I mean, you're basically going from late medieval, Tudor / late medieval, early Renaissance up to through the Renaissance, I suppose. Now, the only thing I've actually done is this. I have looked at CPU versus CPU. just to get an idea. Does it work? What it looks like? How the CPU fights itself? As they say, this is in development, but and nobody gets a point in case of a double kill. Yeah, that would make sense, wouldn't it? So this is where, in terms of performance, it should get interesting. So we have Swept Hilt Rapier versus, what, a saber of some description. Don't ask me for ultra-precise descriptions. And it looks to me like the character on the left is female, which is interesting. Women did fight in duels. And I imagine if they were well trained, I wouldn't want to go up against a woman in a duel. Strangely, apparently, there have been debates about whether women can fight with swords, and the simple answer is, oh yes, they can. Swords are not heavy. If I were to guess, I'd say both of these two swords here are probably no more than 1 kilogram in weight and probably lighter. I can say with reasonable certainty the Swept Hilt Rapier on the left there has got its weight mostly towards the hilt, from what I recall, which means she's going to have very good tip control. There's control over the tip of the blade. Of course, it's more optimized for the thrust, but a rapier of that era could certainly cut. And despite the fact that he was shown with a saber, sabers with a suitable point could certainly thrust. Graphically, well, you got to admit that the graphics look pretty good, to be honest. I'm not going to complain. So, how is it performing? Well, I'm running at, as you can see, at 60 frames a second. And my GPU is running at, right now, 67% capacity. I have run this thing at 120 frames a second. These scenes here, and it will, at least when I'm not streaming, run up to 180. The CPU is not getting a lot of load, which I'm slightly surprised at. It's running at less than 15%. Which is interesting, to be honest, given that you've got two AI characters running there. I'd have kind of expected it to be higher than that. It is, interestingly, somewhat multi-threaded. There does seem to be a primary thread on occasion. The load is not evenly spread across 16 threads here. Oh, that's interesting. That is a later model rapier, cup hilt. And that is much more of a dueling weapon than early rapiers were. That is, in fact, that looks like a triangular bladed rapier, which was optimized for the thrust and essentially couldn't cut at all. Although I wouldn't want to be bludgeoned with one. In case you're wondering, doubles like that apparently are not uncommon. You know, I could almost just sit back and watch this, because it is actually interesting to see Apparently the costumes are authentic, and from what I've seen, the swords are all authentic as well. I haven't seen anything which makes me go, hmm? Now, I don't have encyclopedic knowledge of Polish garb and swords of the era, but I'm not seeing anything that looks anachronistic. Although I sort of question the cup hilt rapier, but to be honest with you, I'd have to check on that, because that was definitely a later development. Early rapiers, by the way, were quite heavy. They evolved relatively quickly. Some early rapiers, because of the complex hilt, were actually heavier than the arming swords they were kind of replacing. Ouch. I can hear bagpipe music. I don't know about everybody else, but I can hear bagpipes. Oops, and YouTube just decided to do something weird with me. Hope everybody else is okay. Longsword on the left. What you would otherwise call a hand and a half sword or a bastard sword, but that is otherwise known as a longsword. Typically, when somebody calls something a longsword, if they know what they're talking about, that's what they're talking about. Interesting, I would have to check. Longsword like that came into being, I want to say 14th century. Lasted a couple of 100 years. I could be wrong about that. They are, again, quite light and nimble. Average longsword, if it weighed 3.5 pounds, that was heavy. So your typical longsword of that type, 2.5 to 3 pounds is reasonable. It is arguably one of the best generalist swords. A hand and a half sword, you could, it was used on the battlefield. I'm not sure you'd want to carry it around in public. A regular arming sword would have been probably more suited. Oh, we have two Scots, and they have broadswords. And this, by the way, is the correct use of the term for those swords. Those are technically broadswords, and that is the only sword that is correctly called a broadsword. So that full hilt, Scottish style, sometimes called a claymore. Good hand protection. Apparently the hand protection does prevent you from doing, so it does limit the wrist movement somewhat from what I gather, but very good hand protection. Hi Zenlin, how you doing? This is actually just me sitting back and talking about the CPU fighting the CPU in Hellish Quart. At some point, I'm going to have to try it for myself. Honestly, I'm not sure if the kilt is period accurate, but I'm going to assume it is. I know a bit about everything. I know a bit about swords. I've got opinions about them. I've read up on them. That kind of thing. I've got definite opinions about, how good was the katana, for example. The answer is, when well made, very good. So was the longsword. Better quality steel, probably, in the longsword. One of the things that's impressing me is even with the CPU, you are not getting long drawn-out fights, which I'm going to guess is pretty much period accurate. Hey Pseudo, even when you watch HEMA fighters, it doesn't necessarily take them very long to get a conclusion. Nice to see they're not doing Hollywood style. Hi Jane. Yeah, this is my. I've apart from running it up to make sure it runs under Linux, which it does, by the way. This is the first time I've even really looked at it beyond making sure it runs. So we're definitely not seeing Hollywood-style sword fighting. We're definitely not seeing arcade-style sword fighting, which I knew coming into this, but it's nice to see it confirmed. Alright, let's see what the rest of the game is like, because I'm almost guaranteed to be terrible at it. Alright, what have we got? Okay, story, training. Training? How to play. How to play. Alright, let's see. Basics. Okay. Alright, I'm not sure I like the TYGH. Got it. All right. Tactics tutorial. Oh, does it? Oh, that's good to know. I do take recommendations for games, Zenlen, but there is almost no chance I will actually. I'll certainly consider the possibility, but bearing in mind I actually have to pay for them. They actually have to work on my system. There's a reason most of my games are cheap. I bought Armored Core 6 recently, and trust me, I am not spending that kind of money on a game anytime soon. Armored Core 6 is probably not worth that kind of price point. It's what, £50? But I always was a big fan of Armored Core, so. Yeah, I know. I don't know about tempo. I've heard it talked about. What I really need. What is right of way? Oh, I get it. Sort of. They both got hit, but somebody got there first. More or less, I suppose. Yeah, honestly, I mean, I would be tempted to try Kingdom Come Deliverance, except for the fact that I've got enough games that I'm streaming at the moment. I don't really need another one. All right. What was this again? Practice versus... All right. Oh no, we're definitely going to go with sharp. Alright, let's have a look, see how this is. Who do I want to play as? Where's my... That's interesting. Where's my mouse gone? Yeah, I'm probably... Oh, no, he's... That is... I actually recognize that. It's an axe. Well, I know it's an axe, but it's Polish shepherd's axe. Alright. Yes, okay. How do I actually get started here? That's interesting. What am I missing here? Oh, come on. Who wants to do... Let's have a little look, see how this works. Ooh, it's a bit cramped. Okay. Yeah. Apparently, the animator also worked on Witcher 3. Now, I'm not sure about this, but hang on a second. Yeah, come on. Seem to be all right. Let's see. Yes, of course we're going to do sharp. I just want to see how this works. All right. I actually want to play this character. Okay. Yes, I get this. Ah, okay. Got it. Oh, that's irritating. It expects me to have a number pad. Okay. Don't tell me it expects me to have a number pad. Oh, why would we fight indoors when we can fight outdoors? Alright, let's see how this works. I must admit, keyboard bit cramped. Your luck on my part. That axe is that axe is actually kind of fascinating. It's a it's genuine. It's not actually a battlefield weapon, although it was used on the battlefield. It is a sort of all-purpose walking stick, self-defense, cut wood. It's a general-purpose survival tool. It's not, strictly speaking, but it is kind of fascinating to see it. Well, I don't have any choice but to play against AI, but the slow motion in there, by the way, that's not the game slowing down, that is how the game does things. Yeah, pretty much, yes. Except, of course, the thing that's got an axe on the top is a little bit of a giveaway. Now, strictly speaking, he's in real trouble. Interesting thing to remember, just in this era in general, if you, well, in general, if you're in a fight and you lose and you get a slash to the wrist, you're probably out of the fight. If you lose fingers, if you lose fingers, you're probably out of the fight. If you come out of the fight and you're still alive and you've got a cut or a slash like one of those, you've got a reasonable chance of dying because, you know, you don't have antibiotics, you don't have modern medicine. So, yeah, and if you lost a hand, yeah, you could survive it. Chances aren't very good, though. I must admit, I don't want that. Ah, my bad. Apparently this works with VR. That might be quite terrifying. Because of infections, yeah. It's very tempting, and I've had to be reminded of this. But, you know, we're so used to seeing in movies, regardless of how well done the movie is, you know, someone gets a cut across the face, or they get a stab or whatever in a medieval setting. You know, reasonable chance of dying. I mean, not everybody did, obviously. Some people survived the most horrific things. I mean, Henry V survived an arrow in his face. Hang on, I'm trying to remember which side it was. I can't remember. I think it was his. I think it was the right side. And so the arrow basically went straight in and got lodged in his face. And I think it wasn't until the next day they got it out. Somebody actually had to invent a way of getting it out, and he did survive. Battle of Towton, in one of the burial pits, they found a guy who basically been hit in the face very hard with something like a sword, and they had managed to reconstruct his face. He had survived and went on to die at the Battle of Towton. So on the one hand, something simple could kill you, but people could survive some really quite horrific stuff. So I'm just sort of throwing it in there, you know. Gives me something to talk about, other than the fact that I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm ultimately going to end up button mashing. Yeah, I do like this guy. Why can't I pick? Yeah, okay, I got that. I just need to be able to change. Ah, there we go. Yeah, let's go against the guy with a... Ah, now. Is that a Schiavona? I think that's a Schiavona, isn't it? That was an Italian style. I was trying to remember what that type of sword was called earlier, and I think it's a Schiavona. Let's see. Ouch. Actually, this... It's nice to see something like a Schiavona in the game. That's really nice. And like I say, apparently doubles, they're quite common in HEMA, and apparently they're quite common in reality. But yeah, of course, if you both... Oops, I thought that was it. Now, I don't know what I'm doing. I genuinely don't know what I'm doing. I'm just learning this. I've never played this before. There is a little part of this that is somewhat reminding me of Bushido Blade. And I can't remember how far I got through Bushido Blade, but I do remember that there were instances where if you got the timing just right, you could just be completely over and done with, and that's it. All finished. I suppose... Let's give Isabella and his nibs here. Because who doesn't like... Who does... Hey, Day, how you doing? Who doesn't like a hand and a half sword? Do they have Swiss Sabre in the game? Yeah, she probably just lost use of her hand there when the tendons got severed. That almost made it look like that. Oh no, why are you sick? Oh, I did like that thrust. No, I had my week's been fairly rough, but it's interesting. I do better with an axe than I do with a hand and a half sword. Oh yes, of course. Disease monkey season. Oh right, did not know that. Why is it I'm better with an axe? Does that say something about my personality? That is... Actually, let's have a look. I'm not going to assume those are all the swords you got available. What we got here? Hang on a second. So we've got Polish axe, the name of which I don't remember. Saber-ish. That is side sword type. Later model. Shavona. Hand and a half sword. I have no idea what he's got. Oh, saber-ish. Yeah. There's an interesting... Yeah, I kind of gathered that. That is, of course, swept hilt rapier. Saber. No idea what he's got from this angle. Cup hilt rapier. Monk with a hand and a half sword. Saber again. Okay. I can't remember what that's called, but the blade style reminds me of what in England would become to be known as a hanger, I think, which was used by the Navy. But I don't think the British Navy hanger had the elaborate... I say had the handguard. And, yep, saber again. Yeah. The fun, and of course that's the classic Scottish claymore, and yeah, that is called a claymore. Two-handed Scottish sword is a claymore. That's also called Dussack. Thank you. Thank you for that. There's an interesting sort of thing. It's like, what's a saber? Well, it's curved, then has a hand guard sometimes, except that there are Polish sabers which don't have a hand guard, and they're still called sabers. In fact, I thought I saw that in the game, but I can't remember what it's called. I want to say Oh, grief. I can't remember the name of it, and I can't pronounce it in my head even. But yeah, no, there is a classic Polish saber which was had no handguard, and it is almost sort of legendary. Oh, what was it called? Hang on a second. I want to say, you know what? I'm going to cheat. I'm going to actually look to see if I can't find out what it was called. I thought it was in the game. Oh, that's not what I remember. No. I'm just going through a quick list of sabers here. And maybe it wasn't a Polish saber. Maybe it was Cossack? Because it was the thing's a classic. Well, it is to me, at any rate, in that I don't think, not only does it not have a handguard, I don't think it has quillons either. So it's pretty much a slash-only weapon, and I can't find it now. Yes, that's it. Shashka. Thank you. Yes, that's it. It's got its own sort of legends like the katana does. You know, there's supposedly tests you're supposed to run on the thing, like it could cut through a nail and you could bend it double and it would spring back. I think that was the one. So it's got a sort of semi-legendary quality to it, just like the katana does. Except most people don't know about the Western stuff so much, even now. Yep, you are absolutely right. I think that's what it is. And now I've got to be real careful, because obviously I got somebody in chat who knows more about this stuff than I do. So I can't just be making stuff up as I go along. Yeah, that's the one. Shashka. Although I see somebody here saying Shashka broadsword. No, that's not a broadsword. Broadsword is a Scottish thing. I mean, it's, you know, in terms of elegance, it's a beautiful little saber. In fact, you could almost say it's almost like a European version of the katana, except that katana had a better handguard. Don't get me started on katanas, please. I don't need to alienate people by talking about katanas. Alright, what was I doing? Pontificating. Actually, I'm just trying to get a feel for the game, to be honest. But I thought they had the Shashka in here. Yes, you're right, Dusak. That I do like. Nice, you know, okay, probably a bit heavy on the blade, good hand protection. I wonder if I can persuade them to put a Swiss saber in. It's not really a saber. It's more like a hand and a half sword with a bit of a basket hilt and a bit of a curve. It is Swiss saber that I'm thinking about, isn't it? It's... Let's oh, all right. Let's have a bash at this. Yeah, but you recognized a Dusak, and my memory was terrible. Even though I should have known it. I shouldn't laugh. Oh, right, okay. I haven't. I've picked it up because I've had a fascination for all kinds of things for years, so... One of the problems with a swept hilt rapier like this is you can actually can apparently with a swept hilt rapier get the point in through the swept hilt. Yeah, tempted to look into it. I was actually wondering whether this was 30 Years' War period, but the Polish were not officially involved in the 30 Years' War, but their mercenaries were. So, and seeing as they're saying what officially sort of 17th century, 17th century is a surprise. You know, it's 100 years. Everybody slaughtered everybody else. I mean, at one end of the century, you've got the 30 Years' War. At the other end of the century, you've got the siege of Vienna in what, 1688, by the Ottomans, making their final attempt to invade Western Europe. I think it was their final attempt. 1688, siege of Vienna. And I think there was, well, Swiss mercenaries. Yes, thank you. The historical bit was in German. Oh, I see. Yes, they're talking about the actual move. So, yeah. Wrapping a cloak around your hand if you don't have a shield. 1622. Well, no. 1622 is... That's on the lead up. Okay. Hang on. Oops. Didn't want to do that. I thought it would let me alt tab out. Hang on a sec. Alright. I'm trying... Let me just have a little check. "30 Years' War." Yeah, when was the 30 Years' War? 1618 to 1648. Okay. So, this is in the middle of the 30 Years' War. Well, I don't think anybody really stopped in Europe, did they? I mean, let's see. No, I mean, let's face it, in Europe, for... Oh, grief. The last time we had... Oh, grief. The problem is we've done so much to each other that for a sort of... Let me think. 300-year period of time? 16th century, 17th century, hang on. 17th, 18th. We had a bit of a pause in the 19th century after the Napoleonic Wars. But I think everybody at some point was having a go at everybody else for that entire time, weren't they? That's gonna leave a mark. Oh, I thoroughly lost that. And actually, I'm not even through that entire period. Hang on a minute. I mean I say that entire time from the 15th century. Oh, grief. Everybody was trying to, oh grief, I want to say kick the Ottomans out. I mean, let me see, you had the Romanians fighting the Ottomans, well, you had most of the Balkans fighting the Ottomans at various times. Oh no, it's alright. It's okay. I can't remember who said it. If you can think and fight at the same time, you must be learning something. That is talking about the game just a little bit. It is, I would prefer... Okay, so right now when I'm playing Secret, yeah, my hands are more or less like this, which might be fine. I would prefer to have... I think I would prefer to use the arrow keys. Which I may well... I may well reset this up at some point for using the arrow keys. That might work for me a bit better. But so I don't normally go on and on. I don't normally spend a huge number of hours on first impressions videos because I'm just figuring it out. And I'm coming up for an hour, and so I think an hour of me rambling about swords and a game I really don't know that well is pushing it. So instead, I'll give you a few impressions of the game. It's definitely a cut above the usual arcade style weapons fighter. I understand there are other physics-based weapons games coming out, but I'm not too familiar with them. So it is, if you like the historical stuff, absolutely. Just based on what I've seen so far, if you like historical swords, historical settings, historical whatever, yes, this is a must-get. The price right now is good until I think the 6th of October, and it is £7.50-ish, and I think I paid £8.50 because I got the soundtrack because it was cheap. That's actually for this a pretty good deal. Am I likely to return to this? Yes, actually I am. This is, don't forget, most of my gameplay is streamed. This actually has already got me thinking, okay, here's something I can do on stream, even if only for an hour. I get to talk about history, I get to talk about swords, and based on what I'm seeing so far, Jane, the community likes to talk about history and swords as well, based on what limited I've seen so far. In terms of graphics are great. I've got absolutely no particular problem or qualms with them. It's not hugely occupying my system. And as you can tell, I'm running on a 1440p widescreen, which is sort of 2.5 times the resolution of your typical 1080p. I imagine this would run extremely well on 1080p with the graphics turned to the max. I wouldn't be surprised if you get 240 frames a second on this. Yeah, which would make things really, and if it was smooth and consistent, that would be really impressive. CPU is not greatly overburdened, which is always nice to see. You don't need a GPU like I've got. I've got a 9070, which I know isn't top of the range. You could run this on a 78 or a 7600, I suspect, at 1080p, and you would have a great experience. So this has so far been, I'm impressed. I am quite impressed. This has a lot going for it. I will almost certainly return to it, which means you lot get to see me make my inept way through the game once more, especially once I've had a bit of time to do just a tiny bit of practice. As for when I will return to streaming, yeah, they do actually say that they go into slow motion. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but don't forget it goes into slow motion if both characters attack. From what I see, it goes into slow motion, and I know it's not me dropping frames or slowing down because I can run this thing much faster than I'm running it right now. I suspect they're trying to make it smooth but not stutter. At a guess, they're trying to get smoothness in the game rather than stutter. You can see some games. I mean, obviously, if you've got a frame rate that's really low, that can look terrible. If you have games which have a high frame rate and then they drop 20% of their frame rate, that can look bad because you can see the change in frame rate. You can actually also have games that run at, say, 30 frames a second and they can still look smooth. So I have a suspicion they're trying to maintain the smoothness rather than have stutter. But that's a guess. I don't know. I do know that if I run what is it? Euro, I will do that. I will say when I get into the story, I'll actually make sure I put it up on the title so that you can see. But I was just saying, this old laptop I've got behind me, I can run Euro Truck Simulator on it, and at 30 frames a second, it's surprisingly playable. So there is something to be said for aiming for a game which is smooth. But anyway, So yeah, I will almost certainly be returning to this, and if you are subscribed and you click the bell button, you'll get a notification next time I go live. Now, as for the next time I go live, that will probably be tomorrow morning. I know it's the weekend, and I know that I say I don't guarantee anything at the weekends. If I had any sanity, I would take at least Saturday off, but I mostly don't. So, in all likelihood, there will be at least 2 streams tomorrow, maybe 3. One will probably be at 8 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, which will be either Warframe or Armored Core 6. Oh grief, maybe. Or I might do the Long Dark, because for various reasons, I didn't stream much of the Long Dark this week, and this morning I left this on a cliffhanger about to try and murder a moose. Tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, that's almost certainly going to be Warframe. So yeah, you can see what I mean by the weekends. During the weekdays, I've got a pretty set schedule. Weekends, I just make it up as I go. So anyway, I am going to cut this early, I think, and go and get myself some dinner. Thank you everyone for watching. Be sure to leave a like if you haven't already, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to see more of the stuff that I do, well, I've got 500 and something off videos. Feel free to ramble through them. Anyway, thanks all for watching. I'll see you all next time.